Electronic mail, most commonly called email or email since around 1993, is a method of exchanging digital messages from an author to one or more recipients. Email operates across the Internet or other computer networks. Some early email systems required the author and the recipient to both be online at the same time, in common with instant messaging. Today's email systems are based on a store-and-forward model. Email servers accept, forward, deliver, and store messages. Neither the users nor their computers are required to be online simultaneously. They need to connect only briefly, typically to a mail server, for as long as it takes to send or receive messages. Historically, the term electronic mail was used generically for any electronic document transmission. For example, several writers in the early 1970s used the term to describe fax document transmission. As a result, it is difficult to find the first citation for the use of the term with the more specific meaning it has today. An Internet email message consists of three components: the message envelope, the message header, and the message body. The message header contains control information, including, minimally, an originator's email address and one or more recipient addresses. Usually descriptive information is also added, such as a subject header field and a message submission date, timestamp. Originally an ASCII text-only communications medium, Internet email was extended by multi-purpose Internet mail extensions to carry text in other character sets and multimedia content attachments. International email, with internationalized email addresses using UTF-8, has been standardized, but not yet widely adopted. Electronic mail predates the inception of the Internet and was in fact a crucial tool in creating it, but the history of modern, global Internet email services reaches back to the early ARPANET. Standards for encoding email messages were proposed as early as 1973. Conversion from ARPANET to the Internet in the early 1980s produced the core of the current services. An email message sent in the early 1970s looks quite similar to a basic text message sent on the Internet today. Email is an information and communications technology. It uses technology to communicate a digital message over the Internet. Users use email differently, based on how they think about it. There are many software platforms available to send and receive. Popular email platforms include Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo Mail, Outlook, and many others. Network-based email was initially exchanged on the ARPANET in extensions to the File Transfer Protocol, but is now carried by the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, first published as Internet Standard 10 in 1982. In the process of transporting email messages between systems, SMTP communicates delivery parameters using a message envelope separate from the message itself. Spelling. Electronic mail has several English spelling options. Email is the most common form used online, and is required by IETF requests for comments and working groups, and increasingly by style guides. This spelling also appears in most dictionaries. Email has long been the form that appears most frequently in edited, published American English and British English writing as reflected in the corpus of contemporary American English data and style guides. Mail was the form used in the original RFC. The service is referred to as mail, and a single piece of electronic mail is called a message. Email is a traditional form that has been used in RFCs for the author's address, and is expressly required, for historical reasons. Email is sometimes used, capitalizing the initial E as in similar abbreviations like e-piano, e-guitar, a-bomb, and h-bomb. Origin. The AUTODIN network, first operational in 1962, provided a message service between 1,350 terminals, handling 30 million messages per month, with an average message length of approximately 3,000 characters. Autodin was supported by 18 large computerized switches. and was connected to the United States General Services Administration Advanced Record System, which provided similar services to roughly 2,500 terminals. Host-based mail systems. With the introduction of MITS-compatible time-sharing system in 1961, multiple users were able to log into a central system from remote dial-up terminals, and to store and share files on the central disk. Informal methods of using this to pass messages were developed and expanded. 1965 MITS ETSS Mail. Developers of other early systems developed similar email applications. 1962 to 1440-1460 Administrative Terminal System. 1968 ATS 360. 1971 SNDMSG, a local inter-user mail program incorporating the Experimental File Transfer Program (CPYNET), allowed the first networked electronic mail. 1972 Unix Mail Program. 1972 APL Mailbox by Larry Breed. 1974 The Plato IV Notes online message board system was generalized to offer personal notes in August 1974. 1978 Mail Client written by Kurt Schoens for Unix and distributed with the second Berkeley software distribution included support for aliases and distribution lists, forwarding, formatting messages, and accessing different mailboxes. It used the Unix mail client to send messages between system users. The concept was extended to communicate remotely over the Berkeley network. 1979 Email written by V.A. Shiva Ayadurai to emulate the interoffice mail system of the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. 1979 MH Message Handling System developed at RAND provided several tools for managing electronic mail on Unix. 1981 Profs by IBM. 1982 All-in-One by Digital Equipment Corporation. These original messaging systems had widely different features and ran on systems that were incompatible with each other. Most of them only allowed communication between users logged into the same host or mainframe, although there might be hundreds or thousands of users within an organization. LAN email systems. In the early 1980s, networked personal computers on LANs became increasingly important. Server-based systems similar to the earlier mainframe systems were developed. Again, these systems initially allowed communication only between users logged into the same server infrastructure. Examples include CC, Mail, Lantastic, WordPerfect Office, Microsoft Mail, Banyan Vines, Lotus Notes. Eventually these systems too could link different organizations as long as they ran the same email system and proprietary protocol. Email networks to facilitate electronic mail exchange between remote sites and with other organizations. Telecommunication links, such as dial-up modems or lease lines, provided means to transport email globally, creating local and global networks. In 1971 the first ARPANET email was sent, and through RFC 561, RFC 680, RFC 724, and finally 1977's RFC 733, became a standardized working system. Plato IV was networked to individual terminals over leased data lines prior to the implementation of personal notes in 1974. Unix Mail was networked by 1978's UUCP, which was also used for Usenet newsgroup postings, with similar headers. BerkNet, the Berkeley network, was written by Eric Schmidt in 1978 and included first in the second Berkeley software distribution. It provided support for sending and receiving messages over serial communication links. The Unix Mail tool was extended to send messages using BerkNet. The Deliver Mail tool, written by Eric Harmon in 1979 and 1980, provided support for routing mail over different networks, including ARPANET, UUCP, and BerkNet. The mail client included in $4 Bahamian was extended to provide interoperability between a variety of mail systems. BitNet provided electronic mail services for educational institutions. It was based on the IBM VNET email system. In 1984, IBM PCs running DOS could link with FidoNet for email and shared bulletin board posting. Attempts at interoperability. Early interoperability among independent systems included ARPANET, a forerunner of the Internet, defined protocols for dissimilar computers to exchange email, UUCP implementations for Unix systems, and later for other operating systems that only had dial-up communications available. CSNET, which initially used the UUCP protocols via dial-up to provide networking and mail relay services for non-ARPANET hosts. Novell developed the message handling system protocol, but abandoned it after purchasing the non-MHS WordPerfect Office. The colored book protocols ran on UK academic networks until 1992. X400 in the 1980s and early 1990s was promoted by major vendors, and mandated for government use under GOSIP, but abandoned by all but a few in favor of Internet SMTP by the mid-1990s. From SNDMSG to MSG in the early 1970s, Ray Tomlinson updated an existing utility called SNDMSG so that it could copy messages over the network. Lawrence Roberts, the project manager for the ARPANET development, took the idea of READMAIL, which dumped all recent messages onto the user's terminal, and wrote a program for TNEX in Techo macros called ROAD, which permitted access to individual messages. Barry Wessler then updated ROAD and called it NRD. Marty Yonk rewrote NRD to include reading, access to SNDMSG for sending, and a help system, and called the utility WRD, which was later known as BANANARD. John Vittle then updated this version to include 3 important commands: move, answer and forward. The system was called MSG. With inclusion of these features, MSG is considered to be the first integrated modern email program, from which many other applications have descended. ARPANET mail. Experimental email transfers between separate computer systems began shortly after the creation of the ARPANET in 1969. Ray Tomlinson is generally credited as having sent the first email across a network, initiating the use of the @ sign to separate the names of the user and the user's machine in 1971. When he sent a message from one Digital Equipment Corporation DEC 10 computer to another DEC 10, the two machines were placed next to each other. Tomlinson's work was quickly adopted across the ARPANET, which significantly increased the popularity of email. Initially, addresses were of the form username @ host name, but were extended to username @ host.domain with the development of the domain name system. As the influence of the ARPANET spread across academic communities, gateways were developed to pass mail to and from other networks such as CSNET, Janet, BitNet, X400, and FidoNet. This often involved addresses such as hubhost, middlehost, edgehost, user at UUCP gateway.somedomain.example.com, which routes mail to a user with the bang path address at a UUCP host. Operation. The diagram to the right shows a typical sequence of events that takes place when sender Alice transmits a message using a mail user agent addressed to the email address of the recipient. The MUA formats the message in email format and uses the submission protocol, a profile of the simple mail transfer protocol, to send the message to the local mail submission agent, in this case smtp.a.org. The MSA determines the destination address provided in the SMTP protocol, in this case bob@b.org. The part before the @ sign is the local part of the address, often the username of the recipient, and the part after the @ sign is a domain name. The MSA resolves a domain name to determine the fully qualified domain name of the mail server in the domain name system. The DNS server for the domain b.org responds with any MX records listing the mail exchange servers for that domain, in this case mx.b.org. A message transfer agent server run by the recipient's ISP, smtp.a.org, sends the message to mx.b.org using SMTP. This server may need to forward the message to other MTAs before the message reaches the final message delivery agent. The MDA delivers it to the mailbox of user Bob. Bob's MUA picks up the message using either the Post Office Protocol or the Internet Message Access Protocol. In addition to this example, alternatives and complications exist in the email system. Alice or Bob may use a client connected to a corporate email system, such as IBM Lotus Notes or Microsoft Exchange. These systems often have their own internal email format, and the clients typically communicate with the email server using a vendor-specific, proprietary protocol. The server sends or receives email via the Internet through the product's Internet Mail Gateway, which also does any necessary reformatting. If Alice and Bob work for the same company, the entire transaction may happen completely within a single corporate email system. Alice may not have a MUA on her computer, but instead may connect to a webmail service. Alice's computer may run its own MTA, so avoiding the transfer at step 1. Bob may pick up his email in many ways, for example logging into mx.b.org and reading it directly, or by using a webmail service. Domains usually have several mail exchange servers so that they can continue to accept mail even if the primary is not available. Many MTAs use to accept messages for any recipient on the Internet and do their best to deliver them. Such MTAs are called open mail relays. This was very important in the early days of the Internet when network connections were unreliable. However, this mechanism proved to be exploitable by originators of unsolicited bulk email, and as a consequence open mail relays have become rare, and many MTAs do not accept messages from open mail relays.